So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Lib Dem's secret Tory takedown plot to smash the blue wall. It's quite interesting, actually. I read through this. There's some decent stuff here, and shows you that the Lib Dems actually have some ideas of what to do next election. They didn't do very well over the last few. They've won a few by-elections more recently. Tinnerton and Honiton being one, Chesham and Amersham another one. So they are kind of eating into the blue wall a bit. The issue is that can they do it during a general election? That's the real question, and I'm not convinced they can. But that's another video for another day. The Lib Dems are to unveil a secret strategy revealing how they plan to unseat Conservatives in blue wall seats. So this already happened, but this is the Telegraph being briefed on the kind of conversation. The party's blueprint for action, which focuses on rising energy bills and NHS waiting lists. And of course, NHS waiting lists, is something they contributed to during their time in coalition, but I'll get told off if I talk about that too much. More than 100 Lib Dem candidates, activists and staffers, MPs, went for a series of workshops and tutorials about how to win marginal Conservative seats in the South, South East and South West. They bring us the local side of things and we will give them the national message, said one senior Liberal Democrat source. So they kind of talk to each other, figure out what's going on in the ground and come together, get a message and get that out to kind of the grassroots support. The Conservative Party think now they've got Boris out, all these Tory voters have come over to the Lib Dems, will go back to them, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them do. I'll be honest with you. A lot of the ones that, voted Lib Dem instead of voting Tory, but also, more importantly, the ones who didn't vote, because voter turnout is typically lower at by-elections, especially when you're disillusioned with the leader. But actually voters were already much more angry with the Tories about the cost of living crisis than they were about Boris, which is quite interesting. It's based on the polling that they've done that voters are very frustrated, not just over Boris Johnson and the lockdown stuff, but also the cost of living crisis as well, which is what their internal polling has kind of showed. And the thing they were most annoyed about was Boris trying to save his own skin rather than trying to solve the energy crisis, which is true. The source added that Liberal Democrat members feel like the Truss and Sunak debate is happening on a different planet, which it kind of is. They're arguing over, increasing taxes on working class people and national insurance and making small cuts and things like that, when we really should be talking about large windfall taxes on energy companies and direct support. They added people who have been door knocking in the last few weeks can't believe they've come up with no real solutions to energy bills going up in the autumn and winter. The only solution Sunak has come up with is cutting VAT on energy, which, okay, it's fine, I guess, but that's not going to be passed on to the consumer at the end of the day. That's guaranteed. You might get 1 or 2% at most. Most of it will go to shareholders, no doubt. The direct support is something, but it's definitely not enough. Nowhere near enough, especially since the energy cap is going to be going up even further than Ofgem originally said, because Ofgem's a joke. Lib Dems have become more emboldened by the resignation of Johnson, and what they see is a lack of unity in the Conservative Party, because let's not forget the Johnson success is he kind of united he took the red wall from Labour, but he kept the blue wall. What's happening now is the Labour Party are hoping to take back the red wall, and they'll do anything to take it back. It feels like sell out any morals to do it, but the Lib Dems can now eat into the blue wall, and it kind of puts the Tories in a position of, right, we can pivot back to our heartlands and try and appeal to those people, which they're very much struggling to do, or try and keep, the large majority they have. And, a person who's torn between two objectives will never reach one. Most likely what the Tories should do is really focus on, their core voters, the heartland voters. The problem is that these people are very annoyed at the Tory party because of the level up agenda, that they see their tax money being spent in the north of England and they're not happy about it. Activists have also been spurred on by recent by-election victories, something we spoke about, Tiverton and Honiton being one of those. They do have a graph on the biggest percentages stolen by the Lib Dems. Taken, I suppose. And you've got some big ones here, Tiverton and Honiton being a huge swing for Lib Dems. North Shropshire is another huge one. Christchurch, Ribble Valley, Eastbourne, Chesham and Amersham, these are huge victories for the Lib Dems. Some of them happened more recently than others. Party activists will be presented with polling of 2019 Conservative voters who were asked which of the following reasons, if any, have made you less likely to vote Conservative. So very kind of open-ended stuff here, and asking what are the key reasons why you voted Tory in 2019. Which of the following reasons, if any, have made you less likely? You're trying to figure out where the kind of weak points are in their support for the Tory party. Rising energy bills was ranked in the top 3 by the majority of respondents, 54%, because not all the Tory party are rich. Some of their supporters are working class, some of them would be lower middle class or kind of middle class voters, and the energy crisis will hit obviously working class people a lot more than it would hit anyone else, but it's gonna hit a lot of other groups of people as well. And 54% of people saying the main reason, where has it gone? The main reason why they might not vote Tory, or the least likely to support the Tory party, is because of the energy crisis. Especially when that cap lifts, right? When that cap lifts in the winter, that 54% mark will go up dramatically. I'm telling you, it'll go up dramatically, because that's when people will get hit with the full kind of whack of the full price increase. A third of voters cited Boris Johnson, which is not a shock. A new leader could kind of galvanise them. I don't know if Sunak or Truss could be the new leader, but 35%, saying that their support's kind of wavering because of Boris Johnson. He's going to go. The question is, can the new leader kind of lower that number there? Another 34% pointed to the allegations of sleaze and corruption. Obviously, Sunak was in charge of the money, and Liz Truss was also there. Collective responsibility exists. 32% said NHS waiting lists, which makes sense given that a lot more people are waiting more than 18 weeks for routine operations. Some people are waiting over a year. We've covered that recently. A lot of people are waiting over a year now for routine operations. The polling is clear. The lack of help with energy bills is a bigger vote loser for the Conservative Party than Boris Johnson. And what that means is, unless the next Tory leader promises some big help when it comes to the energy crisis, they're going to struggle a lot over the next year and into 2024, I think, depending on when this energy crisis comes down. The NHS crisis is electorally toxic for the Conservative Party, as Boris Johnson was. And, again, that's important, but, the Lib Dems did help create it, the NHS crisis. But also the fact that, that's an issue where that's not going to be resolved by 2024. No chance. That won't even be resolved by the end of the decade. And that's even if you had a Labour government in charge now. It wouldn't be solved by the end of a decade. That's how long it will take to resolve the problems within the NHS. It will take a very, very long time. Talking 2, potentially 3 general elections. And so the Tories will not solve that, and that's why the NHS crisis will stay as a large sticking point as to why people's kind of support potentially could waver in the Tory party. They said the message on the doorstep should be that Liz Truss and Sunak do not have clear policies on either of these issues. I don't think that's 100% true. They do have clear policies on the energy crisis, for example. They're just not very good. At least Sunak does. Liz not so much, but Sunak does. With the NHS stuff, they don't really have any clear policy ideas, not really, apart from raising national insurance. This shows that they're out of touch and out of ideas, which is true. They are, for the most part. The next core argument is that the Lib Dems will use hinges on integrity and trust. I mean, I wouldn't run on that if I were you guys, considering what you did in 2010. You definitely didn't have any integrity, and no one trusted you for a long time. Another slide pointing out mistrust and Sunak both remain loyal to Johnson until the bitter end. I mean, that's true. Even though Sunak resigned a few days before, the end, or a week before the end, he was there to the very end. And Liz Truss still backs him to an extent. The party's literature in Lose says Maria Cofield, the local MP, stayed silent rather than called on the Prime Minister to resign. Will be rolled out all across Tory MPs and ministers and blue wall seats. So evidently they're going to look at what Tory MPs have said and say, look, this MP backed Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is the one that ruined this country or did a lot of damage to this country. They cannot be trusted to make the right decision. So this, again, is very smart. Linking what is, an issue that's far away kind of with the Prime Minister and linking it to the local Tory MP. It's a decent move. Another plank of the Lib Dem strategy is that Conservative MPs are talking to people in the blue wall, taking people in the blue wall for granted, which is true. Because again, what the Tory government did, or what Boris Johnson did in 2019, was not really focus on the south, because he thought he had the south locked up, which was true. He did. He focused on the north. Polling of 2019 Conservatives showed that 49% agreed with this statement and just 5% disagreed. So you can see around half the people kind of in the blue wall agree that Boris Johnson took them for granted. The remaining 46% said they either did not know or did not agree or disagree. I mean, that's a bit weird. It's a large amount of people. Many of the English council areas, including Somerset, which I hope the Lib Dems win that, Hertfordshire and Hampshire, are places the Conservatives have traditionally considered to be strongholds. This is their heartland. And, if the Lib Dems take Somerset, I mean, that gets out Jacob Rees-Mogg, which would be glorious. Now they're all increasingly thought as part of the blue wall, containing millions of wavering Tory voters who are disgruntled with the Tories and could flip to Labour or the Lib Dems. And I don't know. I think what we might see is a lot of apathy from Tory voters next time out. There are a large amount of them that will come out and vote regardless, and they'll vote Tory. But if we can see more apathy, I'm always encouraging people to vote, but I think we'll see a lot more apathy next time out, because they might not want to vote Lib Dem or vote Labour, but what's making them vote Tory? What's making them go out of their house, or look at their postal vote and say, I like this. I like my local MP. I like this prime minister or candidate, for example. Many voters have always lent the Tories their support, feel that southern rural areas have suffered at the expense of levelling up in the government's plans. I mean, have southern areas struggled because of levelling up and Boris Johnson, or have they struggled because of 12 years of Tory rule? That's the key question. To improve high streets and fortunes in neglected northern areas traditionally represented by Labour. And again, they see it as, look, that's money that could be spent here, or money that I don't have to pay out in tax, but that money's going for north of England. People in the south definitely, some of them definitely, especially in Tory areas, see themselves as better than northern areas. I mean, it's good. It's a good strategy. At least they're talking to people. They've listened. They realise the energy crisis is the major problem. So they're going to use that as a main sticking point. They've realised Boris Johnson obviously is a major problem. NHS waiting lists are a massive problem. So what they're going to do is, you can go through someone's voting record. You can say, look, this is where they voted to keep energy prices high. This is where they voted to keep NHS waiting lists long. This is where they backed Boris Johnson to the hill, or this is where they didn't contend Boris Johnson when things were going wrong. And those three things will play a large part in any Lib Dem success. Focusing on integrity and all this stuff. Most people, I think, are under the belief that politicians have no honour and no integrity. I am one of those people, I'll be honest with you. Not many of them. Probably count on... I don't hold them in high esteem. And I don't think the ordinary person does either. Could be wrong, especially not the British politicians. I think they're very, very much belong to a circus. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.